So
Tanner, if the electricity goes out during worship, we'll just be done with worship.
Just clap twice. It's like the clap on.
Well, I think we'll just be done with worship because they can't reboot all those microphones and the keyboard, and these lights will come on, but it takes too long to get all that set again. So I'll just introduce you, and then we'll go right into speaking as soon as the lights.
And then if it goes out during my time, just say, hey, it'll be a couple minutes before we're back up again.
Just hang tight with us, and then just keep going.
No problem.
I think that's what we'll do. It's gone out at least twice this morning.
Yeah. Indiana weather.
Yeah.
Teaches.
Today. Let's give a special hand for our visitors that are here. Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate you being here. Also, our men's soccer team was serving us today by greeting and helping us find seats. Let's hear it for the men's soccer team. All right, thank you guys. Listen, this windy day, give somebody a high five next to you if you got caught in the hail yesterday. Anybody? All right, yeah. Okay, so today we've even got better weather for you, right? It's a little bit windy here. All right, it's a little bit windy here today, and that makes it a little bit exciting for us in this building because the electricity could possibly go out. All right, so what we want you to do, if the electricity goes out, if you could just remain in your seats and stay calm, and then they're gonna boot it back up. We'll have a little bit of emergency lighting that comes on, but just stay where you are, and the lights will come up again, and we'll just continue on. So just a little heads up there, okay? All right, we've got a special announcement from Dr. Pepper today.
Hey, I want to make sure everybody has a nice warm welcome for our guests. Can you turn the house lights on for 2 seconds? Is that possible? Can we just thank them for coming? Can we greet them? All right. Wasn't too long ago that many of you were sitting where they're sitting. Hey, I have a really big project I'm working on, and I need your help. And you're all going to get an email next Monday, and then it'll also be in the Coffee Connect. And so here's what we're working on. We are trying to make sure that we're clear in who we talk to about who we are as a university. So we're doing a big study on what makes Huntington University special and unique. And we want to make sure that the way we talk about who we are matches your experience. So we're asking the entire student body, as well as our board members, alumni, area business leaders, pastors, all kinds of people, a series of questions. So all you have to do is go on that link when you get it and fill out the answers in the most honest way possible, because we want the truth. We don't want to hear what you think that you think that we think that you think that we think we should hear. We want to hear what you really think. Now, there's a little bit of an incentive to do this. It's a completely anonymous survey, but if you're interested in winning a dinner for yourself and 5 of your best friends, home cooked at our house by the lovely Mrs. Pepper, you can put your name on the bottom and we'll pull your name out, and then you can pick 5 people to join you and us at our house at a date and time that we determine. Does that sound like a plan? I mean, the DC's good and all, but you haven't experienced her food yet, right? So, really important that you do that before spring break, and here's why. Because if you don't do it before spring break, let's be honest, you're checking out over spring break and you're not looking at your Huntington email. So when it comes in, let's like crash the server and get everybody to do it right away. Are you with me? All right. Why don't you join me in welcoming Joyful Noise as they lead us in our time of worship this morning.
And I was born to lift your name above all. You hear the melody of all creation, but there's a song of praise that only I can bring. Who else is worthy? Who else is worthy? No one, only you, Jesus. Who else is worthy? Who else is worthy? There is no one, only you, Jesus. You are the infinite God of the ages, and yet you chose to make my heart your dwelling place. You healed my brokenness, showed me your glory. So I have songs of thanks, not even angels sing. Who else is worthy? Who else is worthy? There is no one, only you, Jesus. Who else is worthy? Who Who else is worthy? There is no one, only you, Jesus. Who else is worthy? Who else is worthy? There is no one, only you, Jesus. Who else is worthy? Who else is worthy? There is no one, only you, Jesus. God, anointed one, who was and is to come, seated on the throne above. Holy, holy, righteous one, who shed his blood. You prove to us the Father's love. Jesus Christ, be lifted up. Holy, holy, Lamb of God, anointed one, who was and is to come, seated on the throne above. Holy, holy, righteous one, who shed his blood. You prove to us the Father's love. Jesus Christ, be lifted up. Who else is worthy? Who else is worthy? There is no one, only you, Jesus. sun to rise, for my sleep at night. I depend on you. I depend on you. You're the way, the truth, and the life. You're the well that never runs dry. I'm the branch and you are the vine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. Where the Spirit leads, as I'm following, I depend on you. Yes, I depend on you for the victories still in front of me. I depend on you. Yes, I depend on you. You're the way, the truth, and the life. You're the well that never runs dry. I'm the branch and you are the vine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. Be my strength, my song in the night. Be my all, my treasure, my prize. I am yours, forever you're mine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. When I pass through death, as I enter rest, I depend on you. I depend on you for eternal life, to be raised with Christ. I depend on you. Yes, I depend on you. You're the way, the truth, and the life. You're the well that never runs dry. I'm the branch and you are the vine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. Be my strength, my song in the night. Be my all, my treasure, my prize. I am yours, forever you're mine. Draw me close and teach me to abide.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, as we just go into the rest of our service today, I just pray that you would just give us open ears and open hearts to what you have for us, that we would lay it all down, that we would remember that you're our treasure and our prize, Lord, that you are good and you have good plans for our lives, and that we may be open to your direction and what you have for us today. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Good morning again, everyone. So I'm going to highlight a couple things just because, I know all of you go to chapel all the time, but just in case you missed chapel on Tuesday, just to kind of highlight what are we talking about. I'm talking about relationships and stress. And the goal, again, is not to not be stressed. It's to be stressed in the right ways. And today we're going to talk about how do you do that? How do you build something into your life so that you don't go through this? This again is, we've got stress and productivity. And there's times in life where, and college is a great example, you guys get stresses that help you to grow and help you to learn and help you to change in meaningful ways. But all of you, and honestly, this is a very appropriate week coming up here, with midterms, sometimes that stress pushes you into that place of fatigue and maybe eventually exhaustion. And so the goal is, how do you manage stress and manage an increasing amount of stress while at the same time building in some space to where it doesn't completely tip you over into a place of burnout, to where then you become ineffective in what God has in store for you. So I talked about healthy stress. In life, we need that optimal amount of stress. Too little, and some of you have seen that where sometimes your summers include too little stress. You don't read a book, you don't do much that's meaningful, maybe you binge watch a lot of Netflix or something like that, but you feel like, what do I have to show for my time? That's too little stress. But then sometimes we get too much. We end up in overload, where we feel like we're just putting one foot in front of the other, trying to manage what's in front of us. So what I'm going to talk about today is a concept called margin. And this stems from the book that I showed at the very beginning of the presentation called Margin. It's by a guy named Richard Swenson, and he was a medical doctor who was very successful, working a ton, but felt like he didn't have the time in life for the things that really mattered. His priorities had been shifted off a little bit because all he did was work. So he cut his practice down to 3 days, made plenty of money, and all of a sudden had the time for family, had the time for hobbies, had the time for things in his life that he really needed. And when we talk about stress, margin is the space between our load, what we have to carry, and what our limits are. And there's a few different ways to increase margin in our life, because I know sometimes we think like, oh, spring break's coming up. Well, that's great. We have a ton of margin. There's a lot of space. But that doesn't help you in the normal way of things, and you can't take a spring break all the time. So how do you build something like this into your average life? Well, we know the formula for margin is your power minus your load equals margin. Things like spring break, that takes the load away. All of a sudden, maybe you don't have assignments due. Hopefully you don't have assignments due on spring break. Sorry if I assigned anything due right at the beginning of spring break. But for the most part, you take your load away. It makes you feel better for a while. Power is made up of factors such as energy, skills, time, training, emotional and physical strength, faith, finances, and social supports. And the reality is, some of you have more power than other people based on some of these factors. I know some of you have to work more than others to continue being where you are at Huntington. Whether that's part-time job, an almost full-time job, multiple jobs over the summer, that's how you increase your power. And when you look at these different factors, for some of you, you work your tails off to be healthy. You get up in the morning, you go to the Plex, you work out, and it gives you energy throughout the day. That's a way of increasing your power. That's a way of increasing the margin in your life. If you go to any medical doctor, one of the very first things they'll tell you if you're not healthy is, hey, are you working out? Then they'll ask, are you sleeping well? And then, are you eating well? Those 3 things. Load is made up of factors such as work, problems, obligations, commitment, expectations, both your external expectations from your professors, from your RD, but also those internal expectations. What do you put on yourself? Things like debt, deadlines, and interpersonal conflicts. And again, you don't all have an equal load. For some people, your load is different. I talk to students where they carry 19 credit hours a semester. I'm just like, how? Like, how do you manage that? And they manage it. And I talk with students that have 13 credit hours a semester who might be really stressed by what they take. And when we look at the different load that people have, I mean, sometimes you can tweak part of that. So when we look at margin, there's some different areas where margin impacts us in life. One, our emotional energy. think I shared one of my classes. My son had to go to, and maybe this is in chapel on Tuesday, had to go to an orthodontist appointment, had to get the stuff off his teeth. And for a 9-year-old, that's a fairly traumatic experience. Especially when they take that little Dremel tool and they put it in and they start drilling. I mean, just thinking of that sound stresses some of you out, I know. But he was, there were some tears. He was really upset. And it was really an emotional experience for him, but also for my wife who had to hold his hand through that. And they were both spent for the whole day, just wiped out. And I know for some of you, like there's situations where it may be really stressful for you and you feel like, I don't have a whole lot of margin when it comes to emotional energy. There's margin in physical energy. I'm a big fan of snowblowers, honestly. Like, I always prided myself on like going out and shoveling the driveway, but if you guys have ever been to my house, there's this huge incline in my driveway. And the older I get, the less fun it is to shovel things by hand. And I've realized I don't have as much margin in that physical energy as I used to. But when I get my snowblower out, I can knock out like 10 driveways, my neighbors' driveways. That thing's fun. And I feel like, okay, I'm making up for a little bit of the margin that's missing there. So when I think of you guys, one of the things I think about is your margin in time. You may not have a lot of margin in finances. Like I remember living as a college student where it felt like, we talk about paycheck to paycheck for people. Sometimes it's like that monthly paycheck to monthly paycheck where like, I lived on ramen and Pop-Tarts most of my freshman year, which apparently the 13 essential vitamins and minerals in Pop-Tarts really do not provide everything you need. Just food for thought. But there's periods of your life where you have that margin in time. And I see that where I see, some students where you've got class for 2-3 hours a day, then you've got these blocks of time, and it's, how do I spend this time that I have? You may have time where other people have finances. And so sometimes it's identifying, where is the margin in my life? And I talked to some of you, and you're like, I had 3 hours this week. That's it. That wasn't scheduled. That wasn't planned. So one of the goals with margin, when you look at those different areas of finances and emotional energy and time, is to find a sense of balance. The reality is you are not going to stop being busy. You're not going to stop working. Like that is going to be your life for a very long period of time. Just so you know, retirement is not in the Bible. I don't know if you are aware of that, but nowhere in there does it say, hey, you've worked a good life, just retire. It's going to be part of your life as long as you're serving Christ. The goal really is to find balance. How do you get your life as a college student to a point where you begin to have a balance of the things that matter? And we'll talk about like priorities here in a minute. So we have a culture that actually fights against this. And it encourages this abundance of more all the time. It's interesting because when I talk to students, I always try to share really relatable illustrations. And I used to use illustrations from cartoons or commercials or even TV shows. And the reality is, I have to constantly check with students to find out what they're watching. Because when I grew up, everybody watched the same 5 stations. Like if you mentioned a commercial, 9 times out of 10, somebody knew the jingle from that commercial. It's like, oh yeah, I remember watching that. Or if you were watching cartoons, like in my generation, everybody watched Transformers, G.I. Joe, Gummy Bears, like DuckTales. Like there were these cartoons where it was a shared experience across the whole generation. And you guys don't have that in the same way. Like there's YouTube and Netflix and Amazon Prime and Disney Plus and all sorts of different ways in which you consume media. And part of what that's created is this idea where there's so many choices out there, so much differentiation. We see really, like you go to the store, and I've shared this story maybe in chapel before, but my wife has learned very well to be very specific with me when I go to the grocery store. She gave me a list one time she had written out for herself, to be fair, and on that list it had cooking oil. And I go to the store, this is just Kroger, it's not like some specialty store, And I'm thinking cooking oil. Okay, I walk down. Do you know how many different kinds there are? Because I counted. 42. And that's not just like olive oil. There's avocado oil. There's all these different kinds. And so, of course, I'm standing like, well, I'll just call her. Can't reach her. I'll text her. No answer. And honestly, I'm thinking she's just sitting home laughing about this. But the funny thing is, there was another guy standing right next to me. And I look at him and say, cooking oil? He's like, yeah. But there's so many choices. And honestly, I wasted far too much time. Because honestly, like, I don't cook a lot, so, okay, do I need the virgin olive oil? Like, what's that even mean? Like, I don't know. And I was just inundated with choice. And you guys are faced with that all the time. You don't have a lot of simple choices. Many of your choices are complex choices. Even when you look at, gosh, where do I work? Where do I go to grad school? You know, what do I do with my summer? It's not like a lot of situations where it's like, well, there's 2 jobs that I could do. I'm going to do one of those 2 jobs. You feel like I could do an internship anywhere. And our culture creates, all these different things that put so much in front of us where just making a simple decision sometimes is overwhelming. So Romans 12:2, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. So the goal for creating margin, really is something called balance. And again, if you're a reader, Richard Swenson wrote Balance, Margin, and Contentment. 3 books that I honestly think will change your life if you take the time to read them. So balance is a stable, reliable orbit around our core priorities. This means a life will have things like steadiness. Do you feel like your life has steadiness? Do you kind of know what to expect? Do you have a good pace to life? Or do you feel like, well, sometimes I'm running, sometimes I'm falling, or do you feel like, you know what, I've kind of figured out, after a couple years here, what life needs to look like to be productive and meaningful? Is there a constancy to your life, or are you constantly dealing with unexpected things? Do you have a system of organization where you're able to bring your life together and manage it in a meaningful way? Because I think that is a key part of balance. Are you able to, with the imperturbability, it's a fun word, are you able to maintain a sense of calm? In psychology, one of my favorite classes to teach is interpersonal relationships. And I also teach one called Psychology of Health and Wellness. And in both classes, we talk about something called emotional self-regulation. How do you manage what's going on inside of you? Can you maintain a sense of calm even when you're really frustrated? When something doesn't go your way, does it completely throw off your whole day? And I'll tell you, like, the things you're going through now are just training for what's ahead. Because I thought, and just to share a quick aside with this, after leaving Huntington, my wife and I were married. It was the summer after my junior year I got married. She was already out of school. And we had 10 years of marriage before we had kids. I wanted to make sure I was through my master's program, I was through my PhD program, and I really wanted to make sure, like, I want to do this right. When I'm a parent, I really want to be able to put my full focus on being a parent. And at the end of the 10 years, I was like, man, I have got this marriage thing all figured out. Like, why do people think this is so hard? And then we had kids. I know why people think it's so hard. Because one, you can still be selfish when you're married. You can still have entitlement when you're married. Like, you can work that out with the other person. You don't have to constantly care for somebody else. Man, but when you have a kid, talking about maintaining that sense of self-regulation, maintaining that sense of calm, my most emotional period in life was being a new dad. Like, going through the sleepless nights, which, by the way, I know all those students have now since graduated. I was probably not as kind as I should have been in that those first few months when we had Toby, my oldest, when students would look at me and be like, I'm so tired. And I'm not normally very blunt, but I was just like, no, you're not. You don't even know what tired is yet. Come talk to me when you haven't slept for 9 months. So I got better. With the second one, I was a little kinder about it, but it was challenging to maintain that sense of calm because I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't self-regulating well at that point. And then balance is all about purpose. One of my favorite moments as a professor is those light bulb moments when a student, something just clicks where they're like, I now know what I'm going to do with all the skills that God has gifted me with. I have found that fit in terms of a job, in terms of an experience. I'm ready to go do that. And sometimes that occurs through your courses, your conversations with professors. Sometimes that occurs through an internship or practicum. But when you find that sense of purpose, and sometimes it's not a specific purpose yet. If you're a senior and you're like, yeah, I still haven't figured out my life, and I got to figure this out soon because I don't know if you guys have counted down the days, but there's not that many till graduation. And if you're a little bit panicked about that, the reality is it may not be a specific purpose yet, but you do know what God's purpose for your life is. He's been pretty clear about that in the Bible. If you're doing that, the more specific things will follow. Galatians 5:22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. And I will tell you, like, in terms of work, I am one of those people where I probably have a tendency to put more focus on work than I do fun. That's just been my constitution. My work life started at 9 years old doing a paper out, and I continued doing that until I was 16. And in my life, there has been a total of 2 weeks in which I have not had a plan or worked a job. And that was some of the most anxiety-provoking weeks of my life. Like, I have just always worked. It's what I do. But when you talk about priorities, there's not a whole lot of rewards at the end of your life for working more than other people. And this is one of those things as you guys are starting your work life and as you're exemplifying that in how you live out as a college student, you really have to step back and say, what are my priorities right now and how am I living those things out? So these are my top priorities. So this is my wife, Julie, and I will share this was one of our most fun experiences. Anybody ever been up to Traverse City before? I can't see if you're raising your hands, it's dark, but if you've been up to Traverse City, it's a wonderful place to travel. It really encouraged me to like Michigan more. I was not a huge fan of Michigan because of the roads, which if you're from Michigan, you know what I'm talking about. But when you get past all the roads and you get to northern Michigan, Traverse City is amazing. And they've got these tours that you can take on these old boats. And we had the opportunity to do that on one of our vacations. And it was just such an amazing time, both in our relationship and in our lives. It was a lot of fun. On the right, you will see a very young, that's Asa on the left, and Toby on the right. And one of the things that was a bit of a surprise for me as a parent is I had to remember how to play. I talked about, like, I'm really good at work. I've done a lot of different jobs. I've even worked with kids in different formats and functions. But it's different when you become a parent because you realize things like, man, I haven't played, like really played in so long. And where this becomes especially as important is when you have a Saturday and you've got 2 kids like this, and you got to figure out what are you going to do all Saturday? Because the way that kids' brains work, they are switching constantly. Like, you have no idea how many ideas and things somebody can think of and do until you are sitting there for 8 to 10 hours with a young child. You play a game, and that game lasts all of 7 minutes. And then you're on to the next thing and the next thing. And so you become really creative. And for me, like, this was kind of a little, I don't even remember what they were building. It was like a truck or something with boxes and cushions and playing around. But there were so many days where we would just spend the whole day building forts. And I had to learn how to slow down because I can accomplish a lot, especially in a very short period of time, but that doesn't matter a whole lot when you're spending time with your priorities. Some of you, your problem is you need to learn how to be present in the moment. You are surrounded by probably the largest community of your peers that you will ever experience until you get to a nursing home. Honestly. And yet some of you are focused on what's ahead rather than on what's right beside you. And when you look at the opportunities you have to really feed into some of those priorities, you want to learn about yourself. Well, who can teach you about yourself? People that surround you. You want to learn about faith? There are so many people on this campus that if you would just sit and have a conversation with them, you could further your faith. You want to learn about emotional self-regulation? There's people that do that really well. You getting married soon? There's people that have amazing marriages on this campus, faculty and staff, that would love to sit down and have coffee with you and talk about, hey, what makes a good marriage? I had a student that wanted to do an independent study on marriage. I was like, okay, we can figure that out. And one of her goals was she had to meet with 3 different couples who all had healthy marriages and figure out what made that work. And it was amazing because she realized they all do things completely differently, but it works for them. And it helped her figure out a lot of, well, who am I and what can I pull from each of these experiences? And you guys are surrounded by those opportunities. And it's hard sometimes to stop and take a breath and just figure out, like, what should I be prioritizing right now? Is there a conversation with somebody in your dorm you should be having? And I know as a professor I'm telling you this, while at the same time I have assignments that take your time and your focus. But I've been there, and I know that there's plenty of time. You have the same amount of time as everybody else in the world. And there's people who accomplish far more than you do with that time. So I would encourage you, take the time to try to figure out what are those priorities. When you look at margin and balance together, margin helps develop reserves, balances, helps to stabilize them, helps you to choose what capacity works for us, where balance helps us to maintain equilibrium. You can have margin, but if you don't have those things like steadiness, like, again, next week or spring break week, it's not next week after, spring break, you will have tons of margin. But then the week after, you'll be right back to classes. And so what keeps you with all the rest and energy and stuff that happens over spring break, what keeps that for you? What are you doing to make sure I develop a steady pace to my life? Margin helps us to keep our balance. When you get in balance, it helps you to preserve that margin. Then we've got contentment. Again, this is the 3rd book he wrote, and this is something we see all throughout the Bible. When we talk about contentment, we're really reconciling 2 different perspectives: our view of things and God's view of things. And I'll tell you, if you're like any other human, contentment is a challenge, especially in our culture where you can have a phone that does amazing things, and marketing does not want you to be content with that. You always want newer and faster, which, by the way, can you really even tell that it's faster sometimes? But we're always being challenged to do something more. 1 Timothy 6:6-7. But godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into the world and we can take nothing out of it. So there's some ways you can learn through contentment, because I think a big part of margin and balance is not constantly seeking more stuff, not constantly seeking more things in your life. 1, be very intentional about your relationships. Have you ever sat down and made a list of the people who you'd like to get to know better? Hey, this person seems really interesting. I wonder why they're interesting. What makes them such an interesting person? Maybe I should talk to them and find out. Honestly, who wouldn't want the question, what makes you so interesting? I'm sure all of you could answer that question. Have more experiences. If you want to develop contentment, the more that you have experiences that contrast what your situation is like, go down to the soup kitchen on some Friday and volunteer. I guarantee you, your feelings about the DC will change dramatically when you see people who don't know where their meals are going to be coming from. By spending time in the presence of God, through patient submission to Christ, and that is a process. By moderating our desires. It is so easy to binge watch a show. I know I've been there, because sometimes you're like, oh, wait, episode's over. I should probably get up. Oh, it's already started the next one. I guess I'll just watch this one. And we know we don't have the time to do that, but we just fall into that. Sometimes it includes adjusting our hearts. The way to be content is by stepping back and looking at, how do you really feel about the things in your life? Are you too connected to something like a video game? Are you too connected to a relationship? Or is it at least out of balance in your life with where you should be spending your time? By daily choices, through patience, learning to cultivate inner contentment. Honestly, and I'll just kind of tell you guys, I hate yard work. I've never enjoyed mowing. It's one of those things where like you do it and then you just have to do it again. And I never found joy in it. And it took me a long time to reach a point where I felt like, and honestly what makes it palatable for me is I listen to really good audiobooks now while I do it. And it's honestly calmer than my life is inside the house sometimes with the kids. And so it's like, it feels like a small break. But I've developed a sense of pride in my yard and my time there. But that's taken years to develop. I've worked to become more content with the things I have to do. And I put up some other things here, but I want to jump ahead here a little bit. So one of the opportunities I had in college, and this again is me in college when I grew a goatee, which my wife was not a fan of, by the way, so I don't have one now. I led several trips for Habitat for Humanity. And in terms of growing experiences in college, this was probably one of the most growth-invoking experiences for me. I planned a trip down to Florida of 25 students, multiple vans, so many details, helping to build these habitat houses while we were down there. It was a blast, but leading that spring break trip and then coming back, I felt like a different person. I had to be in charge of people's lives and like make sure we got where we needed to go and like people were getting fed and all this sort of stuff. And it was the most adult experience I ever had in college, where I felt like a parent to other people, but it also helped to highlight for me, man, these are areas that I need to grow in. And I came back and just having that spring break experience, and some of you have experienced this with mission trips, service trips, like even just internships. It's amazing how much growth can occur when you have those experiences. So one of the ways to develop contentment that leads to good margin and balance, take some time to think about what is hindering you. Is it your media consumption? If you have a smartphone, you all have the ability to look at how much media you consume on a daily and a weekly basis. And if you look at that and you think, man, if I poured this into a part-time job, I'd have so much financial margin, you probably need to make a change. Judging, expectations for yourself and others, comparisons. You can always find somebody who's doing better than you. But you know what? You can always find somebody who's not doing as well as you too. And how much do you lean on those comparisons? One of the biggest ways to do this is to practice good self-care. Create margin in your life, sleep well, eat well, practice simplicity. Expect the unexpected, learn to say no. Just turn off the media. Just take a break, take a quiet break, take a walk. I know not today, it's kind of bad, but not yesterday either. Apparently we get like dime-size hail. Create buffer zones for yourself. Don't just give yourself no space between leaving your dorm and going to classes. Do you build in 5 to 10 minutes where you can show up and you can have a conversation with somebody in your class or your professor? It's amazing what you can learn in those first few minutes. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I know we're wrapping up here. Overcoming barriers. Sometimes the reason why you get stressed is you've never experienced something before. People often say the second kid is so much easier to manage because you know how difficult life is going to be. You've been through it before. Same thing for you guys with jobs, with classes, things like that. Your second class with a certain professor is usually far easier than your first class. All right, as we wrap up, I just want to share one quick story and then let you go with this. How many have heard of GimKit before? This may bring back some school memories for you. I want to share a quick story about my two boys because I'm really proud of them. They heard from kids at school that there wasn't any fun levels to play on this game that they had to play at school. And so both of my boys have the attitude when they hear of a need, they step up into that need and they try to figure out a solution to that problem. And so they came to me and said, can we create a level on this? So I looked into it, I'm like, yeah, this seems like a legit thing. And so they took the time to design a level. And I'll tell you, this was like a college level experience for them. They were looking at articles, they were watching YouTube videos, like there was all this planning that went into this. And this was a really big deal for them. And then they went to school and were just like telling kids about this, trying to get kids. So they are over the moon that they have 100 views on their gym kit. So I just want to share, if you still have access to this, it's free. If you want to make a kid's weekend, if you were to go, their level is called Skyline Spire by TNA, and it's only available after school hours, so after 4. But if they had a couple hundred views, like they would be over the moon, and it would encourage them in. They did this because they wanted other kids to be able to have something that was really fun. And I've seen my boys step up into things like that, where whether it's our worship pastor had a call out one day where he's like, hey, we need more tech team members. My son came up to me, Toby, at 9 years old and said, I can do that. And honestly, it was a bit like he came up right after the service and there was a whole bunch of adults around. I had to imagine that was really humbling for a lot of them. 9-year-old steps up and says, I can do that. And he joined the team. He's been on for 2 years. My other son joined the team as well. And it has been an amazing growth experience for them. So if you feel like life is stale, if you're not growing the way you want, if your life is stressed, one, I'm happy to talk with you about things like the margin, balance, contentment, but I would encourage you, start building some of those things I talked about into your life and you'll be amazed with the changes. So thank you. You can go.